There are places in this world that hold things. I don't mean that metaphorically, I mean it literally. Certain buildings, certain rooms, certain corners of certain hallways, they hold what happened inside them. I didn't believe that before I worked at Hargrove Hospital. I believe it now with every part of me. Hargrove was a psychiatric hospital in western Pennsylvania, built in 1902. Enormous old building, red brick, high ceilings, long corridors. It had been partially modernized over the decades, but the bones of it were original, and you felt that everywhere you went. I was a night shift nurse there for almost 4 years. Ward 2, second floor, familiar routines, a staff I trusted, no issues for the first 2.5 years. Then they moved me to the third floor. The third floor had been closed for 11 years before reopening due to overcrowding. In its early days, it housed the most severe patients. The treatments practiced up there in the 1920s through the 1950s don't bear describing in detail. It was a different time. When they reopened it, they'd repainted everything, replaced the flooring, updated the lighting. It looked clean and completely fine. But the moment I stepped off the elevator on my first shift, something felt wrong. Just a feeling, like the air pressure was slightly off, like something in that hallway was aware I had arrived. I pushed it down and got to work. The first incident happened 2 weeks into my rotation. Around 3 a.m., I was doing rounds checking patients room by room. At the far end of the corridor was an unoccupied room, room 317, door closed. Nothing inside but an empty bed and standard furniture. As I passed it, I heard a voice from inside, like someone reciting the same words over and over in a continuous murmur. I stopped. I listened, then I opened the door, but the room was empty, bed made, chair tucked in, window closed. The sound stopped the instant the door opened, like a recording switched off. I checked every corner, the attached bathroom, nothing. Then I closed the door, stood in the hallway for a moment, then finished my rounds. I wrote nothing in my report because I had nothing concrete to write. Over the following weeks, other staff mentioned things quietly. Nobody went to management with wild claims. It came up in hushed conversations in the break room. One nurse kept seeing movement at the far end of the corridor out of the corner of her eye. Always the same spot, always when she was alone. An orderly refused to enter the storage room after his third week up there. He wouldn't say exactly why, just that something had been in there with him and he wasn't going back. A young nursing assistant, first job, eager, completely unsentimental, quit after 6 weeks. She told me privately before leaving that she had seen a woman standing at the window of room 317 on 3 separate nights. Room 317, the unoccupied room, the woman wore old clothing, mid-20th century, standing with her back to the room, looking out at the dark, completely still. On the third occasion, the nursing assistant had gone to get a colleague to witness it. When they came back, the window was empty. My own experience happened on a Thursday night in November. I was charting at the nurse's station. Everyone else was on break. Just me, the scratch of my pen, and the low hum of the building. I felt the distinct sensation of being watched. I looked up. At the far end of the corridor, just at the edge of where the light reached, there was a figure, small, standing right at the boundary of the light and the dark. I couldn't make out a face. I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. I just know it was standing there looking in my direction. I looked down to pick up the phone. 1 second, maybe 2. I looked back up, gone. Then I walked the entire corridor, every room, every bathroom, every closet, nothing. I requested a transfer back to the second floor the following week. My supervisor didn't ask many questions. I don't think I was the first person to make that request. Later, I looked into the history of the third floor, old records, newspaper archives, county documents. Between 1902 and 1961, 47 patients died on the third floor of Hargrove Hospital, several of them specifically in room 317. Nobody talked about it. It was there in the records, but the hospital never publicized it. Just fresh paint, new flooring, updated lighting, and 47 dead underneath all of it. The building has been closed for years now. There is talk of demolishing it. There is also talk of converting it into apartments. I hope they demolish it. My grandfather died while sitting in his rocking chair. That's the first thing you need to know, because everything that happened after, every single thing, connects back to that chair. It was a wooden rocking chair. My grandfather sat in it every single evening of his adult life, on the front porch in summer, by the fireplace in winter. When he died peacefully in his sleep at 84 years old, my grandmother refused to move the chair. She kept it exactly where it was, by the fireplace. She said it helped her feel like he was still there. For a long time, I thought that was just grief talking, but I don't think that anymore. My grandmother passed 2 years after my grandfather. The house, a large old farmhouse in rural Georgia, came to my father, and my father, who lived 3 states away and had no interest in moving, gave me the option to live there and maintain it rather than sell it immediately. I was 32, recently divorced, needed a change of scenery badly. I said yes without hesitation. I moved in on a Saturday in early March. The house had been empty for about 8 months, and it felt it. That particular kind of stillness that empty houses collect like dust in every corner. I opened the windows, aired it out, brought in my things. The rocking chair was still there, by the fireplace, exactly where my grandmother had left it. I didn't move it. It felt wrong to move it, so I just left it and went about settling in. The first strange thing happened 3 nights after I moved in. I was reading in the living room, maybe 10 o'clock at night, fire going, and I noticed the rocking chair was moving. Not dramatically, just a slow, gentle rocking, the kind of rhythm you fall into without thinking when you've been sitting in a rocking chair your whole life. I put down my book and watched it. No windows were open, no draft. The fire was steady, no sudden burst of heat. The floor was level. I'd checked when I moved furniture in. There was no physical explanation for why that chair was moving. It rocked for maybe 30 seconds, then slowed, then stopped. I sat there for a long time afterward, just looking at it. Then I picked up my book and kept reading. I don't know why I wasn't more frightened. Maybe because the feeling in that room wasn't frightening. It was something else entirely, something closer to familiar, like being in a room with someone you've known your whole life. It became a pattern over the following weeks, not every night, maybe 3 or 4 times a week, always in the evening, always that same slow, steady rhythm. I started saying good night to it before I went to bed. I know how that sounds, but it felt like the natural thing to do, like acknowledging someone sitting in the same room as you before you leave. My father visited in April. First night he was there, he came downstairs for a glass of water around midnight and saw the chair moving. He stood in the doorway of the living room for a long time. Then he went back to bed without saying a word. In the morning, I asked him about it over coffee. He wrapped both hands around his mug and looked out the window for a while before he answered. He said, "My father used to rock like that, exact same speed. Every evening, I used to fall asleep to that sound as a kid." He went home the next day. He never came back to visit. We don't talk about the chair on the phone, but he hasn't pushed to sell the house either. I think he knows. The most significant thing happened in October, about 7 months after I moved in. The chair started rocking, same rhythm, same pace, but this time something was different. The air in the room changed. Warmer, actually, and there was a smell, faint but unmistakable, pipe tobacco. My grandfather smoked a pipe his entire adult life. That smell was one of my earliest memories of him. warm and woody, and specific to him alone. I hadn't smelled it once since moving into that house. I sat there on that couch, and that chair rocked, and the smell of pipe tobacco drifted through the room, and I cannot fully explain what happened to me emotionally in that moment. I just started crying, quietly, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere very deep that you didn't know was still full. And sitting there in that room with the fire going and the chair rocking and that smell all around me, I didn't feel alone, not even slightly.